Robert Chen had everything money could buy. The 60-year-old businessman lived in a huge mansion by the ocean. The house had 20 rooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a garden that seemed to go on forever. From his bedroom balcony, Robert could see the waves crashing against the cliffs below. His garage was filled with cars most people only dream about: a sleek red sports car, a classic vintage automobile, and 3 luxury SUVs. People in the business world knew Robert as the man with the golden touch. Whatever company he invested in seemed to grow bigger and more successful. Over 30 years, he had built his wealth from almost nothing to billions of dollars. His face had appeared on the covers of business magazines, and younger entrepreneurs often asked him for advice. But money changes people, sometimes in ways they don't expect. For Robert, it brought something unexpected: fear. The more wealth he gathered, the more he worried about people wanting to take advantage of him. Started seeing potential threats everywhere. Was the friendly investor really trying to steal his ideas? Did his business partners truly have his best interests at heart? The questions kept him awake at night. The problem got worse when his household staff was concerned. Robert had employed the same personal assistant, Mrs. Taylor, for 15 years. She knew everything about his life: his schedule, his medication, his favorite foods, and even which shirt he preferred for important meetings. Mrs. Taylor had become almost like family. Then one morning, without warning, Mrs. Taylor told Robert she needed to leave. Her daughter in another state was having a difficult pregnancy, and she wanted to be there to help. Though Robert understood, the news hit him hard. Who could he trust to replace someone like Mrs. Taylor? The agency sent several candidates, but none seemed right. Either they asked too many questions about his wealth, or they seemed too eager to please, or something in their eyes made Robert uncomfortable. After 3 weeks of interviews, he was ready to give up. That's when he met May Lin. May was 42, with kind eyes and a calm way of speaking that immediately put Robert at ease. She had moved to the country 12 years ago, and had worked for 3 families before applying for the position with Robert. Unlike the other candidates, May didn't seem impressed by his wealth or the size of his home. Instead, she asked practical questions about her duties and the household routines. "I have 2 children in college," she told him during the interview. "I worked extra jobs for years to help them get a good education. Now they're both studying to become doctors." Something about her straightforward manner made Robert want to trust her. Her references were excellent. The families she had worked for previously had nothing but praise for her honesty, hard work, and attention to detail. "She's like sunshine in the house," one former employer said when Robert called to check her background. "We were sad to lose her when we moved overseas." Robert hired May that day. She would live in the guest house on his property and manage the household, including the cooking, cleaning, and coordinating with other staff who came in periodically. The first few weeks went smoothly. May was everything her references had promised: efficient, thorough, and respectful of Robert's privacy. She learned his preferences quickly and anticipated his needs without being asked. The house ran more smoothly than it had in years. But old habits die hard. Despite having no reason to doubt May, Robert couldn't stop his suspicious thoughts. What did she do when he wasn't home? Was she looking through his personal belongings? Did she talk about him to her friends or family? One night, as he sat alone in his study, Robert opened his laptop and checked the security cameras around the property. He watched May going about her duties, nothing unusual in her behavior. Still, the nagging doubt remained. Everyone has a price, his father had told him years ago. When money's involved, you never truly know someone until they're tested. Those words had stuck with Robert through the years. Maybe his father was right. Maybe the only way to know if May was trustworthy was to test her. The idea came to him one evening when he was putting some documents in his office safe. The safe contained not just papers, but also cash. He always kept at least $50,000 in the house for emergencies. There were also family heirlooms, including his grandmother's jade necklace, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What if he accidentally left the safe open while he was away? He could set up a special camera to watch what happened. If May found the open safe, what would she do? Would she take something thinking he might not notice, or would she close it and tell him about it later? The thought made Robert uncomfortable. It seemed unfair to test someone who had given him no reason to doubt her. But another part of him argued that it was better to know now than to be betrayed later. For days, the idea grew in his mind. He found himself watching May more closely, looking for any sign of dishonesty. But her behavior remained beyond reproach. Finally, Robert made his decision. Next Tuesday, he had a full day of meetings in the city. He would leave the safe open that morning, with the cash and jewelry clearly visible. Then he would wait and see what kind of person Mei Lin truly was. Tuesday morning arrived with a perfect blue sky. Robert woke up earlier than usual, his mind already racing with thoughts about the test he had planned. He showered and dressed with extra care, choosing a dark blue suit that made him look serious and professional. Today was important, not just for his business meetings, but for what he would learn about Mei. At breakfast, Mei served him freshly squeezed orange juice and an omelet, just the way he liked it. As she refilled his coffee cup, she mentioned that the gardeners would be coming that afternoon to trim the hedges. "Is there anything special you need before you leave for your meetings?" she asked. Robert shook his head. "No, but I do have a request. My office needs a thorough cleaning today. Dusting the bookshelves, vacuuming, the whole thing. I've been too busy to let you in there properly since you started." "Of course," May nodded. "I'll take special care with your books and papers." "I appreciate that," Robert said, checking his watch. "I'll be gone until evening. The meetings might run late, so don't wait dinner for me." After May left the dining room, Robert went to his office and closed the door. His heart was beating faster than normal as he crossed the room to the painting on the wall, an original landscape by a famous artist that concealed his wall safe. He swung the painting aside and looked at the digital keypad of the safe. Taking a deep breath, he punched in the code. The safe door opened with a soft click. Inside, everything was neatly organized. Robert took a moment to look at the contents. Several stacks of $100 bills secured with paper bands, each stack containing $10,000. In total, there was $50,000 in cash. Next to the money was a small velvet box containing his grandmother's jade necklace, a family treasure worth at least $300,000. The deep green stones caught the morning light, seeming to glow from within. There were also several folders containing important documents, property deeds, investment certificates, and his will. Robert arranged everything so it would be clearly visible to anyone who looked inside. Then, instead of closing and locking the safe, he left the door slightly open, just enough that someone cleaning the room would notice it wasn't secure, but not so obvious that it seemed intentional. Next came the cameras. Robert had installed a sophisticated security system throughout his home years ago, but for this test he wanted something more targeted. The previous evening, he had placed 3 small cameras in his office, one hidden in a bookshelf with a clear view of the safe, another disguised as a desk ornament that would capture anyone approaching his desk, and a third positioned to show the entire room. All 3 were connected to his phone, allowing him to check the footage remotely. He tested each camera to make sure they were working properly and that the angles captured the safe clearly. Satisfied with the setup, Robert collected his briefcase and phone. Before leaving the office, he took one last look at the open safe. A wave of doubt passed through him. Was this really necessary? Wasn't it a violation of May's trust? "It's just a test," he told himself. "If she's honest, I'll know for sure, and I'll make it up to her somehow." As Robert walked through the living room, he saw May arranging fresh flowers in a vase. She looked up and smiled. "Have a good day at your meetings," she said. "Don't worry about anything here." "Thank you, May," he replied, feeling a twinge of guilt. "I'll see you this evening." The drive into the city usually relaxed Robert. He enjoyed watching the coastline, the waves breaking against the shore. But today his mind kept wandering back to the open safe. Had he made the right decision? What would it say about him if May passed this test? What would it mean if she failed? Robert's first meeting was with his investment team. They discussed market trends and potential new opportunities, but he found it hard to concentrate. During a coffee break, he slipped away to the bathroom and checked the camera feed. on his phone. May hadn't entered his office yet. The safe remained as he had left it. The second meeting was with a tech company founder who was seeking investment. The young man's enthusiasm would normally have captured Robert's attention, but today he found himself checking his watch repeatedly. When would May clean his office? What would she do when she found the safe? By lunchtime, Robert had barely eaten anything. His stomach was in knots. During a break, he checked the cameras again. Still nothing. Perhaps May was cleaning other parts of the house first. The afternoon stretched on with more meetings. Robert made himself focus, taking notes and asking questions. But underneath his businesslike exterior, tension was building. Every time his phone vibrated in his pocket, he wondered if it was a notification from the security cameras. At 3:30, during yet another presentation, Robert's phone buzzed with an alert. Someone had entered his office. Excusing himself, he stepped outside the conference room and found a quiet corner. With slightly shaking hands, he opened the security app and watched the live feed. May had entered the office pushing a vacuum cleaner. She started methodically cleaning the room, dusting each shelf carefully, wiping down the surfaces, straightening the items on his desk. Robert found himself holding his breath as she approached the wall where the painting hung. Would she notice the painting was slightly askew? Would she see that the safe behind it was open? As May turned toward that section of the room, Robert's phone rang loudly. His assistant calling about the next meeting. He quickly silenced it, but when he looked back at the screen, May was standing directly in front of the painting, staring at something. The camera angle changed as she moved, and suddenly, Robert could see exactly what she was looking at. The open safe. The moment of truth had arrived. May stood frozen in front of the painting, her eyes fixed on the partially open safe. The duster in her hand hung motionless at her side. Through the phone screen, Robert could see the surprise on her face, her widened eyes, her slightly open mouth. For several long seconds, she didn't move at all. Robert's heart pounded as he watched. What was going through her mind? Was she calculating how much she could take without him noticing? Was she wrestling with temptation? Or was she simply shocked to find her employer's safe left open? Finally, May moved. She set the duster down on a nearby table and stepped closer to the painting. With careful fingers, she pulled the frame away from the wall just enough to see the safe more clearly. The camera caught her expression changing from surprise to concern as she took in the contents, the stacks of cash, the gleaming jade necklace, the important papers. Robert leaned against the wall of the hallway, eyes glued to his phone screen. Around him, people walked past on their way to meetings, but he barely noticed them. Everything in his world had narrowed to this moment, to the woman standing in front of his open safe with no one watching, or so she thought. May reached her hand toward the safe, and Robert felt his stomach tighten. This was it. Whatever she did next would tell him everything he needed to know about her character. Her hand hovered near the money for a moment, then to Robert's surprise, she didn't touch any of the cash. Instead, she carefully pushed the safe door, closing it until he heard the soft click of the latch engaging. May then checked the handle, giving it a gentle tug to make sure it was securely closed. Robert stared at the screen in disbelief. She hadn't taken anything. Not a single dollar. Not even a curious touch of the jade necklace. Instead, she had secured his valuables. But perhaps she was just being cautious. Maybe she planned to come back later, when she had more time, or when she was sure the house was empty. On the screen, May straightened the painting back into its proper position, concealing the safe once more. She picked up her duster and continued cleaning the office as if nothing unusual had happened. She dusted the bookshelves methodically, vacuumed the carpet, and wiped down his desk with careful attention. As she was about to leave the room, she paused. The camera showed her looking back at the painting, her brow furrowed in thought. Then she walked to Robert's desk, pulled out a notepad, and began to write something. The camera angle didn't allow him to see what she was writing, but she left, the note prominently in the center of his desk before finally leaving the room with her cleaning supplies. Robert exhaled slowly, realizing he'd been holding his breath. His assistant appeared in the hallway looking concerned. "Mr. Chen, are you all right?" The investors are waiting to continue the presentation. Yes, I'm fine, Robert said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Just needed to check on something, at home. For the rest of the afternoon, Robert went through the motions of his meetings, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying what he had seen, May finding the safe, closing it, leaving a note. What did the note say? Had she taken anything before closing the safe? The cameras hadn't shown any sign of theft, but doubt still nagged at him. By the time his last meeting ended, Robert was exhausted. Not from the business discussions, but from the emotional roller coaster of the day. He declined an invitation to dinner with his business partners and headed to his car, eager to get home and check the safe in person. The drive home seemed to take forever. The usual beautiful sunset over the ocean barely registered as Robert rehearsed what he would say to May. Should he admit to the test? Should he pretend he didn't know she had found the safe open? Should he check the contents before speaking with her? When he finally pulled into his driveway, the house lights were on, creating a warm glow against the darkening sky. Robert sat in his car for a moment, gathering his thoughts. Whatever happened next would change his relationship with May forever. He couldn't unknow what he had learned about her today. As he entered the house, the smell of cooking greeted him, something with ginger and garlic that made his stomach rumble, reminding him that he had barely eaten all day. He heard May in the kitchen and called out a greeting. "I'll be right there," she answered. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes if you'd like to freshen up first." "Thank you," he said, turning toward his office. "I need to check on something first." Robert's office was exactly as he had left it that morning, except cleaner. The carpet had been vacuumed, the surfaces dusted, the windows spotless. His desk was neat and organized, and in the center lay a folded piece of paper with his name on it. With slightly shaking hands, Robert picked up the note and unfolded it. "Mr. Chen," it read in May's neat handwriting. "I found your safe open when I was cleaning today. I closed it for security, but wanted to let you know in case you needed to check that everything is as it should be. Respectfully, May." Simple, straightforward, honest. No excuses, no elaborate explanations, just the facts. Robert sank into his chair, the note still in his hand. A wave of emotions washed over him. Relief that nothing had been taken. Shame for having doubted May's integrity. Gratitude for her honesty. He moved to the painting and swung it aside, then entered the code to open the safe. The door swung, open, revealing the contents exactly as he had left them. The stacks of money, the jade necklace, the documents. Nothing was missing. Nothing had been disturbed. Robert closed the safe properly and returned to his desk, sitting heavily in his chair. The weight of his misjudgment pressed on his shoulders. He had been so ready to believe the worst, so quick to set up a test rather than simply trust the person he had hired. The note lay on his desk, a small but powerful testament to May's character. In that moment, Robert made a decision. He would tell her the truth. He owed her that much. After dinner, Robert asked May to join him in the living room. She followed, looking slightly confused. He rarely asked to speak with her in the evenings, unless it was about the next day's schedule. "Please sit down," he said, gesturing to one of the comfortable armchairs. The large windows behind them showed the ocean, now dark, except for the reflection of the moon on the water. May sat, her hands folded in her lap. "Is everything all right, Mr. Chen?" Robert took a deep breath. The speech he had prepared in his head suddenly seemed inadequate. How do you tell someone you deliberately tested their honesty? How do you admit to that level of distrust? "I received your note," he began, "about the safe." "Yes," May nodded. "I hope I did the right thing by closing it. I didn't want to touch anything inside, but I was worried about leaving it open." "You did exactly the right thing," Robert said. He paused, gathering his courage. "But I need to tell you something. The safe wasn't left open by accident." May's expression changed from confusion to understanding. "You were testing me," she said quietly. Her directness caught him off guard. He had expected her to ask why, to demand an explanation. Instead, she had immediately grasped the situation, Yes, he admitted, unable to meet her eyes. I set up cameras to watch what you would do when you found it. The room fell silent. Robert could hear the distant sound of waves breaking on the shore below the house. He waited for May to respond, to be angry, hurt, or disappointed. But when he finally looked up, her face showed something else entirely. A sadness tinged with understanding. Someone must have hurt you very badly in the past, she said. It wasn't what Robert had expected her to say. Not at all. He had been prepared. For anger, for resignation, maybe even for her to quit on the spot. But not for compassion. What do you mean, he asked. To test someone like that? To go to all that trouble to see if they would steal from you? You must have been betrayed before. Trust doesn't break on its own. Someone breaks it for you. Robert stared at her, momentarily speechless. In all, his years with all his wealth and power, no one had ever spoken to him with such simple, direct insight. I'm sorry, he said finally. It was wrong of me to test you. You've given me no reason to doubt you. May nodded slowly. May I ask what happened? In the past, I mean. Robert hadn't planned to share personal stories. This conversation was supposed to be about his apology, not his history. But something about May's quiet presence made him want to explain. 10 years ago, I had an assistant named Thomas, he began. He worked for me for 3 years. I trusted him completely, gave him access to my accounts, my personal information, everything. He was like family. Robert's voice grew harder as he continued. Then one day I discovered he had been stealing from me for years. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He had taken over $2 million by the time I caught him. But it wasn't just the money. He had been sharing private information about me with my competitors, business strategies, investment plans, personal details. That must have been very painful, May said. It was. After that, I became careful about who I let into my life, who I trusted. Robert ran a hand through his hair, suddenly feeling very tired. But that's no excuse for what I did today. Testing you like that wasn't fair. I understand why you did it, May said. Trust is hard when you've been hurt. Her simple acceptance of his explanation, without excusing his actions, made Robert feel even more ashamed of his test. I want you to know that I saw everything on the cameras, he said. You didn't just close the safe. You were careful not to touch anything inside. You left me a note right away. You did everything exactly right. May smiled slightly. My father used to say that true character is what you do when no one is watching. Although in this case, someone was watching. After all, Robert couldn't help but smile at that. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was, May said. He cleaned offices for 40 years. Never took a single thing that wasn't his even when times were hard and we didn't have much. He taught me and my brothers that once you lose your good name, it's almost impossible to get it back. Robert nodded, thinking about how different his own father had been, teaching him to suspect everyone, to always look for the angle people were playing. Which approach had led to a happier life? I'd like to make this right, he said. I've wronged you with my suspicion, and I want to apologize, properly. You already have, May said. Your honesty just now is enough. No, it isn't, Robert insisted. Actions matter more than words. I'd like to offer you something. May looked concerned. Mr. Chen, I don't need a reward for not stealing from you. That should be expected, not rewarded. It's not a reward for your honesty, Robert clarified. It's a recognition of my mistake, and maybe a way for both of us to move forward with more trust. He explained his idea. A substantial raise in her salary, yes, but also something more meaningful. He had noticed how proud she was of her children in college, how she worked extra hours whenever she could to help with their expenses. I'd like to set up a college fund for your children, he said, to make sure they can finish their education without you having to worry about the cost. May's eyes widened. That's very generous, but please, Robert said, let me do this. Not because you passed some test, but because it's the right thing to do. Your children deserve the chance to focus on their studies without financial worry, and you deserve to know your hard work has secured their future. For the first time since he'd known her, May seemed at a loss for words. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "They're both so smart," she said finally. "They work so hard. My son wants to be a pediatrician. My daughter is studying to become a researcher. She wants to find cures for diseases." "Then it's settled," Robert said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I'll have my lawyer set everything up tomorrow." As May thanked him, her voice thick with emotion, Robert realized something had changed within him. The wall of suspicion he had built around himself over the years had developed its first significant crack. And somehow, instead of feeling vulnerable, he felt lighter. 5 years passed. The big house by the ocean changed in small but noticeable ways. There were fresh flowers in more rooms, not just the main living areas. The kitchen was more often filled with the smell of home cooking. Most noticeably, there were sometimes visitors, May's children during their school breaks, and occasionally, Robert's business associates for dinner parties that May helped organize instead of just serving. The biggest changes, though, were not in the house but in the people who lived there. Robert still worked hard and made smart investments, but he no longer spent every waking hour focused on business. He had developed interests outside of work. He took cooking classes, started a small collection of paintings by local artists, and even adopted a golden retriever named Lucky, who followed him everywhere. May still managed the household with quiet efficiency, but her role had expanded. After that night when Robert had confessed to testing her, their relationship had slowly evolved from employer and employee to something more like a partnership. Robert had discovered that May had a good head for organization, beyond just household matters. She began helping him organize his charity work, then started making suggestions about which causes to support. One afternoon, Robert was sitting on his deck overlooking the ocean, Lucky snoozing at his feet when May brought him a cup of tea. "Your speech for tonight is on your desk," she said. "I made the changes you suggested." "Thank you," Robert nodded. "Are you sure you won't come to the dinner? You deserve to be there as much as I do." May smiled. "No, I'll stay here. This is your moment. Besides, I promised a video call with Lee tonight. He wants to tell me about his first week of residency." Robert nodded, understanding. May's son had graduated from medical school the previous month and had just started his pediatric residency at a children's hospital. Her daughter was in her second year of a research program, studying diseases that affected children in developing countries. Both were thriving, free from the financial worries that might have held them back, thanks to the fund Robert had set up. "Give him my congratulations," Robert said, "and remind him that my offer still stands if he wants to join the Foundation's medical mission next summer." That evening, Robert stood at a podium in a hotel ballroom filled with the city's wealthiest and most influential people. The annual charity gala for his foundation had become one of the most important philanthropic events of the year. Tonight, they would raise millions for children's education and healthcare programs. As he looked out at the audience, Robert thought about how different his life was now compared to 5 years ago. Back then he had been wealthy but isolated, successful but suspicious, rich in money but poor in meaningful connections. "Good evening," he began. "Thank you all for coming tonight to support the Chen Foundation's work with children in need." He spoke about the Foundation's accomplishments over the past year, the scholarships they had funded, the medical clinics they had built, the research they had supported. The audience applauded at all the right moments. Then Robert departed from his prepared speech. "I'd like to share a personal story with you tonight," he said, "one that I've never told publicly before. It's about how this foundation really began." The room quieted as Robert told the story of the test he had set for May. He didn't mention her by name, calling her only "my housekeeper" to protect her privacy, but he described in detail how he had left the safe open, how she had found it and closed it without taking anything, and how her integrity had forced him to confront his own lack of trust. "I had become so suspicious of everyone that I set a trap for someone who had given me no reason to doubt her," he said. "And when she passed this test that she should never have been subjected to, I realized something important. My wealth had become a wall between me and other people. I assumed everyone wanted something from me, that no one could be trusted, and in the process I had made myself lonely and bitter. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on his every word. That day changed my life, Robert continued, not because I discovered I could trust my housekeeper. I should have known that already, but because I realized how small my world had become. I had everything money could buy, but I had lost the ability to see the goodness in people. He explained how that realization had led him to establish the foundation, starting with a college fund for his housekeeper's children, and growing to include programs that now helped thousands of young people. The true value of wealth isn't in what it buys for you, he said. It's in what it allows you to do for others, and sometimes the most valuable thing isn't money at all, it's trust. Trust in the basic goodness of people. Trust that most people will do the right thing even when no one is watching. After the speech, many people approached Robert to shake his hand and comment on his story. Some shared their own experiences of learning to trust again after being hurt. Others confessed that they too had become isolated by their wealth and position. Late that night, when Robert returned home, the house was quiet. May had left a light on in the hallway and a note on the kitchen counter saying that Lucky had been fed and walked. Robert poured himself a small glass of water and stood by the windows, looking out at the moonlight on the ocean. His phone buzzed with a message, a photo from May of her son in his doctor's coat, smiling proudly on his first day of residency. Robert smiled and sent back a brief congratulatory message. Then he looked around the peaceful house, thinking about how a simple act of honesty had changed not just his life, but so many others. The foundation now employed 30 people and helped thousands of children. May had been promoted to head of household operations and helped interview and train new staff, all of whom were treated with trust and respect from day one. Her children were launching promising careers dedicated to helping others. And Robert himself had found something he hadn't even known he was missing, a sense of purpose beyond just accumulating more wealth, and the ability to trust that not everyone in his life was trying to take advantage of him, all because he had left a safe open, and a woman with unshakable integrity had closed it.